to The Writer's Dream. The Writer's Dream is a show where authors and storytellers can talk about their books, their stories, how they write their books, how they publish them, and how they market them. We are now on Facebook, and we are on Facebook as The Writer's Dream. So if you have any questions for The Writer's Dream, please contact us on Facebook. Today, I am co-hosting with Karen Bonet, who is the author of
Whale Island and the Mysterious Bones.
Whale Island and the Mysterious Bones. I have written the Annie Tillery Mystery Series, and our guest today is Elizabeth Rowe, storyteller.
Also known as Beth to family and friends. Welcome, Beth.
Well, thank you.
Well, let me talk about Beth a little bit. Beth is a featured performer, keeping the oral tradition alive in libraries, museums, festivals, coffee houses, and social clubs. She has presentations that inspire, entertain, and enrich imaginations. She has appeared on Cablevision, Players Club, Cornelia Street Cafe, New York Storytelling Exchange, and her specialties are programs for adult audiences that inspire and entertain. She does intergenerational programs as well, and she does children's programs for literacy and entertainment. She is wonderful at ghost stories. I've heard her do ghost stories. She's amazing. Beth is also a producer, narrator for acx.com, which helps authors turn books into the audio format, which we're going to discuss today quite a bit. So Beth, tell us about yourself, your background as a former educator and as a professional storyteller. Start with that.
Well, I was a French teacher for 26 years. I taught high school French upstate and most recently in Baldwin, New York. I'm retired from that, but I do teach adult ed French at Nassau Community College, so I keep up with it. And I've been a storyteller professionally since the late 80s. I'm not sure how many years that is, but a few decades anyway.
Beth, do you know what an elevator pitch is?
An elevator pitch.
Okay,
You
an
mean
elevator
voice?
pitch is you get on an elevator and you realize that you're on the elevator with a person who can make you famous in what you want to do. So you have from the first floor to, say, the fifth or sixth floor to pitch yourself, to say what it is you are and why they should want you. So
Wow.
how would you describe yourself as a storyteller?
As a storyteller, stories are primal. They really are. Everybody loves a good story. And all audiences, adult and children and mixed audiences, will really react to a good story session. And my stories began as ghost stories, as Karen said, and I evolved with myths and folk tales. And when I went back to teaching full-time, after I became a storyteller, I had to kind of give up the schools that I was doing, so I concentrated on weekend events with adults, and I love it, and they really, really respond to a good story.
We're now on the 25th floor.
Wow. Well, I should
Oh,
actually
kidding.
start a story and get off the elevator and say,
It
if
took
you want to
me-
hear the end.
It took me 3 years to come up with an elevator
It's
pitch.
hard to do it in a minute. It's very hard to
Yeah,
get a speech like
just
that
to say
done.
the essence of what a
Right.
storyteller
You have to
is.
practice. That's something.
I mean,
Stories
it seems so
inspire and
obvious.
entertain and speak to the human condition. They do it all. They do it all. There are storytelling groups that specialize in grieving, in healing, in forgiveness. It's amazing what a good story can do.
And you've done historical storytelling. I know you've done stories that mean a lot from history.
Yes, and deal with real people.
With real
Yes,
people, yeah.
exactly.
Oh.
And personal stories. They are, let's say, the latest push or trend, if you want, in the storytelling community. And it's led me to really explore my own history.
Yes.
And an offshoot of that is I recently did a few memoir writing workshops that were very, very well
Memoirs
received.
are very big now. They're
I
very
understand that.
popular.
I
They
can
sell
see
very
that.
well.
Are
Yeah.
you doing one that has to do with your father's?
The most recent thing I'm doing, I just sent out a flyer. My father, I like to say my father's a lot older than I am, but my
I
father
hope so.
was a lot older than I am. He was born in 1893.
Wow.
So think about it, one generation.
Right.
We spanned 3 centuries.
Yes.
And he was in World War I. The 100th anniversary of World War I is this year. And he told me a story when I was a young child about the piper, he was Scottish, and he was in a Scottish regiment in northern France. And of course, they traveled with the piper and the bagpipe player, and he started playing a Christmas carol on Christmas Eve when all the boys were in the trenches. And when it ended, and it was so silent, they heard a voice from across no man's land. And it was a German soldier calling out a request for Stille Nacht. And the
Silent
piper
night.
played Silent Night, and all night long
Isn't that amazing?
they exchanged requests and played and sang together. And I've come to know much later that that was such an historical moment.
I've
Yes.
heard that story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be telling it in a lot of libraries over
Right.
Long Island and in New York City this year.
When is the first time you'll be telling it?
I'll be telling it in November around Veterans Day.
Around the holidays.
And then right straight through the holidays. And it's on my website, the different venues
Yeah.
that I'll be telling it in.
So,
Amazing.
yeah, that is an amazing story. So you said you started in the 80s. What made you get started with storytelling? How did you get involved with it?
I got started telling ghost stories to kids who were camping up in the Adirondacks where we were vacationing. And I did it because I just had an incredible amount of ghost stories because I loved them and I collected them kind of. And all about upstate New York, which is where I was from. So there we were in the Adirondacks and I knew all these stories that happened in and around that area. And I would tell to teenagers around a campfire. And after 3 years of this, I ran out of stories. And I went to my local library, Mrs. Cunningham in Oceanside.
Oh, I remember her.
Remember her, the
Oh, yeah.
children's librarian, and was telling her and asking her if she had any recommendations for books or sources. And after a long conversation, she asked me if I would do a program at the library. And I said, sure, and we settled on a time and a date and age group. And then she gave me the fee, and I, whoa, that's great.
Yes.
So after that, she called me, and it was successful. She asked me if I'd like to go on the road, and she recommended me to librarians. And through that, I met someone who called herself a storyteller, and I said, well, I guess that's what I am. And she then belonged to a Long Island Storytelling Guild, and I joined them and found out about the National Storytelling Network, of which I've been a member for over 20 years.
Okay.
Is there any particular training for becoming a storyteller? I mean, obviously, you just fell into it naturally. Probably your teaching background helped.
I think people do fall into it naturally. However, there are now storytelling programs at different colleges. You can, there's even one, I think, on the internet that I found recently. But they do have them in different colleges. There wasn't anything like that I knew of growing up, but of course,
Probably not.
there's study in folklore, which is a lot of the books that I read on ghost stories were studies in folklore. And
But you have a background in drama, too, as well.
Yes.
I do.
That probably,
I think that
really helps.
people, after a storytelling session, people will say, are you an actor? And
Yeah.
I say, well, yes. And you don't have to be. Most of the storytellers I know are not actors. They are
but tell us
storytellers.
about your drama background.
Right.
Well, I've always loved being on stage. I've loved being in the spotlight.
Yes. In the
You're a
limelight.
ham.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
yeah.
trying to say? Okay.
And so I've been doing it since grade school. And actually, I applied to colleges for that degree, but I didn't take that degree. I went on to the French degree, but I still acted in college. And after college, I acted in community theater. And so I just kept it up. And when I was raising children, it wasn't that easy. But now that I'm retired, all my children are grown, I've gone back to it.
Right.
And I recently did Linda Lohman in Death of a Salesman.
Which
at
was
Merritt.
wonderful. She was
Oh.
wonderful in that role.
But,
And your husband's
love that
involved in
role.
it also.
and yes, my husband is too,
Yeah.
so it's nice sometimes we're cast together in a show, so
Yeah.
that's a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Do you have a favorite role that you've performed in?
Well, Linda was wonderful. I
Yes.
also loved Lucy and Dracula. It was amazing. And Sophie in a French farce that we did years ago. Yeah, a lot of very good roles.
So going back to storytelling, what is the audience you market to? I mean, what is your favorite audience? I know you do it for adults and children, but what's your
Right.
favorite?
Right now it is adults because I've been doing that for so
So long.
long, and but I do love ghost stories.
Yeah.
I really love that, and kids are
What's your
wonderful
favorite
because
ghost
they'll
story?
scream. My
Should've told you to
favorite
bring
ghost
it. You could've
story.
read it.
She should do a
Tell it.
short one, right?
I should do.
My first book is a ghost story.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have the
Yeah.
Madonna
I like 'em
ghost.
too.
Yeah.
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 They're fun.
I love the Hitchhiking Hattie ghost story, or the hitchhiker who bums a ride and gets a relationship going with the person who.
I like the
Who
Ghost
picked
in
her
Mrs.
up.
Muir.
Oh, I love.
I love that show,
Love
yeah.
that
I
movie, yeah.
do
Yeah.
love.
Oh,
that.
it's a show, too.
Oh, it was a show. I saw it when
Yeah,
it was a
it was
show.
originally a movie in the 40s, I guess.
That's the movie. I know. I
think
don't know the
the
show.
show came out of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I have to look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the movie.
Yeah.
I saw, the
Yes.
show was great, though.
I never saw the show, but the movie's
I loved
wonderful.
it.
Oh, you should watch
I'll
it.
have to see that.
It's very touching.
Yeah, and I remember Topper too. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Gosh,
Yeah, all these
Wow.
people.
a long time ago.
Yeah. So have you ever worked with a ghost hunter or, somebody who actually researches and looks into ghost stories to see if they can capture the ghost?
No, I never have.
We
but-
know somebody.
Yes, we do. Yeah, she wrote a
We
book on
do.
it, too.
Oh.
One of the authors in the Long Island Authors Group that has been on our show. She wrote a book, what is it called? I don't remember it now, but it was
I don't think, that's
something about
Carrie
ghost
Ann
hunter.
Brodsky, who's been on this show, and
Yes.
she
Okay.
actually, does she still have that blog radio show on ghosts?
No, I
does.
think she
She
gave that
stopped
up.
it?
She stopped that show.
But I was thinking
yeah.
of Joe Giaquinto.
Yeah, I think he might still have the blog.
He's the scientific ghost hunter.
Yes.
He
I
goes-
did go to a presentation at a library about ghost hunters. I can't remember the name. They talked about auras and photographs. Whenever we go,
Probably was them.
It could have been
when
them.
we ever go to a different town or city, and we stay there a while, we always look up walking tours. We do that in New York
Yeah.
a lot with the Municipal Art Society. It's
Those
fantastic.
ghost walking tours are big
But
in
the
London.
ghost walking
Yeah.
tours
They're
are
fun.
the first ones
Yeah.
I'll go for, and they
Yeah.
are really
They have
fun.
a million of
I
them in
enjoy
London,
them.
gosh.
They do.
Yeah.
And you get a
Very
lot of the history of the
historical
place.
area.
You
Yeah,
know, you get the actual history of
Yeah.
the area,
Yeah.
besides the ghost story, because I don't know, because it's part of the time. You know, most ghosts in this country are from the older times.
Right.
And most ghosts in Europe, they're more plentiful because it's simply an older civilization as we know it. And it seems that the more potent ghosts are, the older they are.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just something I learned.
Well,
It's an interesting topic.
it is.
That's for sure. So,
I'm just thinking that, go ahead, Linda, you were going to ask a question. And
no, go ahead, Karen.
I was just thinking that because we've written books and you have your storytelling and acting, these are creative people. We are all creative people, and I think the creative minds think differently and kind of out of the box. And since we've written books, we're going to talk about marketing and about the importance of it. What have you done to market yourself? And let's talk about that a little. And then what have you done to market yourself? You want to start first, and then Linda, you can talk about what you've done.
Okay,
to market
mine will be
yourself.
very short because I don't have the talent that I know Linda
Neither
has.
do we.
She's, but I think you're
Yeah.
terrific.
We learned
I
along the
think
way.
you're-
We
Yeah, we've
kind of-
learned along the way.
Yeah.
And it's a full-time job.
Especially
Well,
book marketing.
I
Yeah.
imagine,
Yeah.
I imagine.
Yeah.
I know that since I recorded your book, we're going to talk
Yes, we're
about
going
that
to
a
talk
little bit.
about that, yeah.
They have put up some suggestions from ACX, and I hope to follow them this summer when I get a nice
Oh, it's the
block of time.
giveaways. They give you 3 free giveaways.
Yes.
That's one thing they do. And Facebook and Twitter and all that. Do you have a Facebook
Well, that's
page?
it. I do have a Facebook page, but because I have a web page, and most of the people I've contacted on my own, I use a brochure and I make a direct
Yeah,
contact.
yeah.
I steer them to my web
Yes.
page, and I have gotten contacts from my
From the
web page.
webpage.
So I don't tend to use Facebook, but I know I underuse it, and that's one of
Yeah.
the markets I want
It
to.
seems
Well, every
social
time
media
you
is
do
very
a
big.
presentation, you should have somebody take some pictures and put it on Facebook with a short description.
Right.
Aha.
And do you have a personal Facebook page or a business?
I have both, but the business page, I made when I went to the library and learned about Facebook and did my Facebook page. I understood there was a business page, so I put one up as storyteller. It wasn't long after that, I created my website. I have never once been back to that business
Okay.
page.
Okay.
I
I
think
use
it's
mine all
there,
the
but
time.
I never use it. And
Yeah. You can
at a
actually-
recent storytelling conference, a fellow storyteller recommended it to me, and again, it's something I have to
Because you can
explore.
really keep, you can put almost anything
Yes,
on it. You
including
can put
YouTube videos.
stuff from YouTube,
videos.
for instance, you'll get the DVD for this, it'll be on YouTube,
Right.
and then you can just download a code, put it on.
It'll show the whole video.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have someone who edits, they can edit it down for you and do a little video trailer for yourself, for your storytelling.
Who edits a
That's
DVD?
if you want more business. I mean, if you're happy with what you have,
Yeah.
and it's word of mouth, I
Right. If
wouldn't
you're
be
doing
bothered with
okay.
it either.
Yeah.
Because it really is quite a bit of work. What I was really going to ask you before I got somehow sidetracked in my head was, before we get into ACX and the audiobooks, do you have a favorite story of something that happened to you while you were telling a story, either funny or poignant, or
Yes,
not the story itself, but something that happened in the presentation?
Gosh, I can't think right now. I'll tell you something that happened to me on my way to tell ghost stories. And it was right here on Sunrise Highway. It was further west. But you got to think, it was almost Halloween. It was that time of year. I was on my way to tell ghost stories. And so I was going over them in my head. So I like to say it was a cold, windy night, and I was surrounded by ghosts. And they were all in the car with me because they were with me in my head.
Yes.
And you know, sitting up front was hitchhiking Hattie, who told me, and I picked her up in Freeport and dropped her off in Merrick, and then came up Abe Lincoln, because I tell about him, and the people in history like Queen Beatrice and Winston Churchill who have seen him. And then I went on to the next person. So finally, and I liked going out Sunrise Highway, even though I had the lights and everything, because it gave me the time, you know, to think. So that's my frame of mind, and I'm finished with my, you know, all my ghosts. They're still there, but I can take a breath and look around and see how far I've got to go. And that's when I noticed that the car ahead of me had no driver. And I swear it had no driver. I was in my husband's Jeep Cherokee Laredo, where I was up high.
Yes.
This is a small little coupe or whatever. And I could see right through. I could see the driver's seat. I could
The
see
headless
seat.
driver.
There were no knees. There was nothing. There was no driver in that car. And I thought,
I thought
okay.
it was just a short person.
Yes, a
Okay,
very
come
short
on.
person.
And I know I was behind that car for a while. It didn't because
Did you pass it? and notice
no,
it?
because you know how even unconsciously you're behind a car, you see it braking. I could see that Keep Christ and Christmas sign there, you know, and it was the same one I'd been looking at through Seaford and Wantagh. Now I'm in Massapequa, and there's no driver in this car. So we're stopped at a light, and this is one. So there's something called a story trance when you have a audience with you in the story. Everybody's kind of in this, and I thought, oh my God, I fell asleep. I put myself in a trance. I started hitting myself and going. And there's this person next to me, and I could see I was definitely awake. I mean, ouch, ouch. And there was still no driver in that car.
But you were in back of it.
I was in back. And
There was
then
somebody
I thought,
next to you.
I thought, okay, they're out of the car. Something dropped, and so I go to look, and then the light changes, and the car takes off.
That was it, in the dust.
Now I had a big decision to make, okay? I had to be at, and I kid you not, it was the Amityville Public Library I was headed for.
Oh.